Hey everyone, we are in the home stretch. Now we are at a very fun step, which is actually painting. So before I start painting, I'm gonna go in with a little Q-tip, a little bit of water, not a lot. I'm just gonna clean up some of this extra chalk so that it's not in my way as I'm painting, and that I have a good transfer image to work with. In order to paint our design onto our board, we need a few materials. The paint that I'm using is acrylic paint. I have a series of paint brushes of different sizes. Some are quite little, some are a little bigger. So I have my board set up. I have the design right off camera so that I can reference it. Have my brushes ready, my water ready. I have my paper towel just off camera right here so that I can use it whenever I need. I have my paint and my wax paper that I'm using as a palette, and I'm just going to put a little bit of paint on my wax paper. What I prefer to do is first to use the finest brush that I have and to outline the chalk. Now there are going to be places where your chalk lines aren't super evident. What I do in those instances, like in this M, is I outline what I can see and I move on. What I found is that in the end, it's very obvious what I'm missing. So I'm going to skip this, just move on, and I'll come back to it in the end. Now as you're doing this, there are going to be little places here and there where you just don't like how you painted it. Or maybe you've even messed up and you've gone out of the lines that you intended to paint. Don't worry about it. Don't get caught up in this idea that you need to be perfect. Before we finish this sign, we're actually going to distress it again. We're going to sand it again, and we're going to put some clear waxes to really highlight the distressed nature of the sign. And so just keep going for now. You can always kind of cover up or hide or distress or sand down any areas that you feel like you've messed up. I guarantee you that those are going to be the areas that look really interesting in the end. So embrace it for right now and just keep going. One thing that I'm particularly guilty of is smudging my hand in the paint as I paint. So I always have to stop and check my hand and make sure that I'm not trailing white paint wherever I go. Also, there are going to be places like here in the H where you've made a pretty big divot in the board, and you have a few options here. If you want, you can kind of get in there, get in the crook and fill it in with white paint. If you think it would look better to kind of skip your paintbrush over that area, that's cool too. Choose what works for you. Choose what you think will look best. There are no right answers in this process. So to fill in some of these big blocks of color, let me pick up some paint. And at this point, it's really just coloring in the lines. So at this point, I have everything kind of blocked out and painted in. Now what I'm gonna do is put a little more paint on my brush and just really make that white denser. So I'm gonna go in, I'm gonna try to kind of clean up anything where there's paint brush marks, but I really want the white to be a bit more opaque. So I'm gonna go over it one more time with my thicker paintbrush and just thicken everything and darken everything up. It's funny to say darken with white paint, but make everything a little less transparent. Now anywhere that there's visible brush strokes, I'm just gonna really lightly take my brush and kind of glaze it over the top, just so that I can erase any paintbrush marks that I don't want.